AZ sound. What's the most suspicious thing an ex did that later made sense? I was with my ex for almost 5 years. He wasn't flashy. Not the kind of guy you'd suspect of anything interesting, let alone awful. Calm. Steady. Good on paper, as my aunt liked to say. My family adored him. My dad trusted him with tools. My mom trusted him with stories she didn't even tell me. That detail will matter later. We lived together for 3 years. Shared bills. Shared routines. Shared that unspoken assumption that we were done looking for other people. I didn't feel lucky in a fireworks way, but in a quiet, adult way. Like, this is it, I can exhale now. The suspicious thing didn't start as suspicious. It started as a quirk. He became weird about his car. At first, I thought it was just a phase. He'd always been neat, but suddenly the car was spotless in a way that felt aggressive. Not, I ran it through the wash clean. More like, no evidence of human life clean. The seats looked unused. The floor mats were vacuumed so often they were wearing thin. The smell inside wasn't neutral, it was antiseptic, like lemon cleaner layered over something else. If I left anything in there, lip balm, a hair tie, an empty coffee cup, he'd bring it inside immediately. Sometimes he'd hold it between 2 fingers like it was contaminated. You forgot this, he'd say, not annoyed, just firm. Once I laughed and said, you act like my stuff is radioactive. He smiled and said, I just like my space a certain way. That sentence became a theme. Then came the rules. I wasn't allowed to drive his car anymore. At first it was a joke, you mess with my mirrors, then it was about insurance, then about how stressed he felt when other people drove his things. He'd rather Uber than let me drive his car, even when mine was in the shop. He framed it as a boundary, and I didn't want to be the girlfriend who disrespected boundaries. So I adjusted. Like you do. He also stopped liking surprises. If I showed up at his work to drop something off, he'd tense. Not angry, just off. Later he'd say he hated being caught off guard. If I asked when he'd be home, he'd give vague windows instead of times. Probably around 6-ish. Depends on traffic. Not sure yet. But here's the part that messed with me. If I texted him during those vague windows, he'd respond instantly. Full attention. Clear sentences. Sometimes voice notes. Always calm. Once, I asked where he was, and he sent a photo of his dashboard. Parked. Engine off. Just sitting somewhere. Just decompressing, he said. I need quiet before coming home. I told myself that was healthy. He started showering the second he walked through the door. No hello kiss. No dropping his bag. Straight to the bathroom. Long showers. Hot enough to fog the mirror and drip condensation down the walls. I asked once if everything was okay. He said he felt gross after work and liked resetting. That explanation worked. Every explanation worked. That's what scares me now. My family loved him so much it became a problem. My mom would say things like, don't mess this up, you won't find another one like him. My sister, my older sister, who I trusted more than anyone, would roll her eyes and say, you're lucky. Most men aren't like that. So when something felt off, I didn't just question myself. I felt outnumbered. The first real crack came from something stupid. A receipt. I borrowed his car one afternoon because mine was blocked in and I needed to run a quick errand. He hesitated before handing me the keys, just a fraction of a second too long. Don't mess with the seats, he said, smiling. I got in and immediately noticed the passenger seat was pushed way back. Further than it ever was when I sat there. On the floor was a folded receipt. I picked it up to toss it in the cup holder. He was suddenly at the car door. Hey, don't touch that. His voice wasn't loud. It was tight. Controlled. I froze. Asked what was wrong. He took the receipt out of my hand, crumpled it, and shoved it into his pocket. Sorry, he said. It's trash. I just cleaned. He kissed my forehead and walked back inside like nothing happened. But my hands were shaking. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about how fast he'd moved. How afraid he'd looked. I didn't know what the receipt said. I didn't need to. Fear has a texture, and that moment had it. After that, I started noticing everything. A woman's hair in his car that wasn't mine. He said it was probably from a coworker. A faint perfume smell on his jacket. He said it was from the office. The passenger seat being pushed back again. He said maybe a friend had ridden with him. Each explanation made sense. Individually. Together, they formed a pattern that I kept refusing to finish. I asked my sister once if I was being paranoid. She laughed and said, you always overthink. If something was wrong, you'd know. That sentence haunts me. The breakup didn't come with a reveal. It came with fatigue. He said he didn't feel connected anymore. Said he needed space. Said he felt like he'd lost himself. He cried. Real tears. Held my hands while he said it. I was blindsided, but everyone else acted like it made sense. He's been under a lot of stress, my mom said. Sometimes love just runs out, my sister said, avoiding my eyes. That should have been my second warning. He moved out quickly. Took his car. Took his clothes. Left behind a few things he said he'd come back for but never did. I spent weeks replaying our relationship, trying to find where I failed. I blamed myself for not being exciting enough. For nagging. For trusting too easily. Then the truth came from the worst possible place. My cousin, drunk at a family barbecue, pulled me aside and asked if I was doing okay with everything. I asked what she meant. She went pale. You don't know, she said. Apparently, my ex had been seeing another woman for over a year. A married woman. Someone from his work. And here's the part that broke something in me permanently. My sister knew. She'd suspected. She'd seen texts pop up. She'd noticed him disappearing during family gatherings to take calls. She didn't have proof, but she had enough to warn me. She chose not to. When I confronted her, she cried and said she didn't want to hurt me. That she thought it might just be flirting. That she didn't want to be wrong and cause drama. But the truth was simpler and uglier. She liked him. She didn't want to be the reason he was gone. The car made sense then. Everything did. He wasn't just cheating. He was using that car as a controlled environment. No witnesses. No locations tied to him. He cleaned it obsessively because it held his secrets. He didn't let me drive it because I might notice what didn't belong to me. The showers weren't about stress. They were about erasing someone else's presence before stepping into my life like nothing happened. And my family, my own blood, helped maintain the illusion by telling me I was lucky instead of listening when I was uneasy. I never confronted him. I didn't need to. The truth wasn't something I needed him to confirm. It was already loud enough. The bitter ending isn't that he cheated. It's that the people who were supposed to protect me taught me to distrust myself instead. That I learned how easy it is for love, family, and comfort to conspire against your instincts. Now, when something feels wrong, I don't ask if I'm being dramatic. I ask who benefits from my silence. And if the answer isn't me, I listen to that quiet voice I almost lost. Because betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people who tell you everything is fine, while handing you a lie and calling it peace.